Had a few comments asking how I built my Ogre army, so I wanted to make a short video to show some of the work in progress shots of my army that I have and talk a little bit of how I constructed them. So first of all, my Tyrant, I started off with some artwork from the old Ogre book. I started this army back in 7th edition, and I like this artwork for a Tyrant. So I started off by trying to sculpt an Armature. He actually started off, he was meant to be the same size as a regular Ogre, and I made some errors in the proportions. I ended up lengthening his legs, and he just got bigger in all directions. So basically there was a smaller Tyrant sculpt inside him, but I couldn't get it right without increasing the size. So I figured it was okay with the Tyrant. He can simply be the biggest Ogre around. A bit more work on the adding some more green stuff on the hammer. So this was the finished sculpt. I had changed the angle of the head and redid the face. I wasn't happy with that. There was a few extra details, rivets and things that got added after this picture, but not many. And then I did a cast of my original sculpt. So this was quite a big mold to try and do. And it worked reasonably well. I was quite happy. There was a bit of an undercut behind the head that was a bit problematic, and the mold broke eventually, but I got a few casts out of it. I'm going to recast it again at some point. So this is the finished model as it was painted up. So this is one of the casts that I then painted. For my VSB, I wanted a really big banner. I wanted something that was particularly large and impressive. These days I'm getting a sort of banner creep. I'm already starting to think that this wasn't big enough. Maybe I'll make one that's even bigger than that and have this guy relegated to being just a unit standard bearer. But I basically sculpted the banner out of green stuff on a flat piece of plastic, peeled it off, and then sculpted the back on. This isn't too hard as long as you can try and get it smooth, and then I just freehanded the eyeball on there. So most of the time spent on the eyeball was really trying to get the iris to look right, and a lot of different shades and colors went into that. For the body, he's based on one of the Minotaur bodies with a lot of green stuff sculpted over the top, which is in the same way as my Iron Guts. Here is my Soldier Master. He's also based on a GW Minotaur. I've used the GW Minotaur arms. I've used one of the Ogre heads. This was the only one I kept the Minotaur feet. I figured the Slaughter Master could be a little mutant around the edges, so a few bits and pieces, heads and daggers got stuck on for the final version. This is my Butcher, one of the few models that is unconverted, and I think one of the only metal models in my army. Actually, for the weapon, extended the haft is the only conversion I made. So he has a great weapon. The hand that's holding the weapon is actually magnetized, so I can switch out for a different weapon if I want to. But I usually run him with a great weapon. So here are my Iron Guts. So these guys were all based on the Minotaur frame. I got a couple of boxes of Minotaurs. Some of them don't have Minotaur bodies in there. The Minotaur sprue comes with a lot of extra arms, so I was able to save a little bit of money and make a few extra bodies and use the spare arms for that. These took a long time to get to rank up, and they only really rank up in one or two ways. It took me a lot of time to try and figure that out. Also, I needed to be able to fit characters into the second rank or the front rank and make sure that nobody gets in the way of anybody else. I also added a little lookout nobbler. He comes off, I think, the scrap launcher sprue. He's sitting there picking his nose onto the banner bearer. For my bulls, these are just regular Ogres. I did these originally. I was going to try and do everyone with their Minotaur bodies, but in the end I quite liked that there was a sort of size hierarchy. So the bulls were the smallest, and then the Iron Guts were sort of larger, and then the characters were the biggest of all. These guys are relatively unconverted. I added some jackets and shields. The big differences. Originally, these guys all had regular iron fists off the sprue, but I made up my shield cast, which I'll talk about in a moment, and I liked it so much I broke all the iron fists off and replaced them with these shields. For their straw rice hats, what I did was I sculpted one. I wanted to show what the mold looks like, so I would do a two-part mold. So I sculpted the original hat, placed it, poured rubber on one side, turned it over, poured rubber on the other side, and that's what the casts look like. These are my Morn Fang. I don't have any work in progress shots of my Morn Fang. I was having a look. I'm sure I took some, but I couldn't find any. I do have some pictures of the casts of the torsos. The bodies are armored. and I sculpted an armored body for them. And I also, this is the shield. So what I actually did to get the shield so nice and round was I took a lid off a medicine bottle and cut it, and then filled in the inside with a nice smooth shield area, and added the sort of metal knoll in the middle. And I haven't got a picture of it, but I sculpted a hand and wood on the other side, so it's textured on both sides. So for the Morn Fangs themselves, I used the Morn Fang models, but several things. I didn't like the sort of small behind that the Morn Fang have, so I sculpted the whole rear end of the Morn Fang up and added tails. I also changed the paws. Once I actually really looked at them, they look more like rhinos in body shape, especially the front of the body. So I turned their legs round the other way to be more like cat legs, with the rather than a knee. It's got a sort of backward facing knee. I sculpted the feet and the faces. I used the teeth of the original Morn Fang, which sort of tusks that stick up as the teeth that point down for these guys, to make them into saber-tusked or saber-toothed tiger looking cats, rather than the sort of weird rhino hybrid of the original Morn Fangs. I did kind of base these guys on Cringer from He-Man. My wife keeps telling me I need to make a He-Man ogre and paint it properly up as Cringer, and do the red battle armor as well, but I haven't done that yet. So these are my man-eaters. These were sort of the last big project I did for the ogres. I really enjoyed the giant samurai in Sucker Punch, so obviously that's my sort of inspiration. It's not a direct copy, but it's obviously pretty close. So I started off, again, I used the dimensions of the GW Minotaurs so that they would match my Iron Guts, but these guys, this was a full sculpt, so you can see the small inset how I started trying to do the armor. One of the most time-consuming bits was adding all the little tiny pieces in between the armor plates, the little I think they're meant to be straps holding the different armor plates together. That took a long time to do all of those. And then I cast this again, and then took the cast and I made conversions based on that. So I gave one an unarmored head. Bits and pieces got changed and chopped. This sort of final look. And I'm planning to make more of these. One of these days I'm going to field the 18 strong man-eater horde for a tournament sometime. I've just got to make a few more man-eaters. Saber tusks are unconverted or nearly unconverted. They come from the Reaper miniatures. They make some very nice saber-toothed cats there that you can find and fit perfectly for the scale. Iron Blaster, my first Iron Blaster. I love the Iron Blaster model. I didn't feel it needed any changing, so the first one I put together was completely unconverted. For the second one, I wanted to do something slightly different, so I gave him one of the hats, and I also wanted to do it so that the Iron Blaster was firing. If you look carefully, you can see that the Rhinox is being pulled back by the blast, so his front 2 feet are not on the floor. The two big obvious parts was the muzzle blast and the sort of plume that comes out of the firing hole. And so I made these out of bits of wire. I then built them up with tissue paper and PVA glue to try and get the rough shape. And then over the top, the final layer, I did green stuff, which I was able to smooth out nicely. So that's it. That's a very quick look at how I built my ogre army.